Hello, my name's Chris Merriman. I'm the Associate Director for Practitioner Services here at Manufacturers Network. And I'm introducing here a set of tools and techniques for lean thinking to help you identify waste, streamline processes, and drive continuous improvement. So as part of this, we're introducing here some really fundamental concepts that will serve you well on a day-to-day basis, ways of thinking, ways of behaving that help embed a continuous improvement culture in your organization. As you probably know, lean is a methodology, is a set of principles that help identify waste, improve processes, and importantly, engage people. Empower people to identify problems, solve problems, and help make their workplace and make themselves as good as they can be, therefore leading to organizations continually improving. That's the essence of what lean is about. So the fundamental concepts we're going to explore in this little series of content here, we'll start by looking at value itself. That's where lean starts. What does the customer determine as value? What do we mean by value stream? Because if we understand those, then we're in a better position to identify waste or non-value added activity. So we'll then explore different aspects of waste. Thirdly, we'll look at the Gemba, the actual place the work is done, and discuss why this is a fundamental concept in lean thinking, going to the Gemba, especially important for leaders, and to do it regularly so that constructive conversations can take place. And then finally, for driving improvement, for exploiting those improvement opportunities, we'll be just taking a quick look at what we call the scientific method, the scientific approach embodied in PDCA, or Plan, Do, Check, Act. So let's take a look at value. It's the first lean principle. Principle number one, identify who are your customers and what is their definition of value. And of course, this changes over time. So we need to stay tuned in to what really matters to our customer. We should never just assume that we know. We should constantly test our thinking and show that we care about the things that the customer cares. They're the people we are serving, whether they're internal or external to our organization. So how do we define value when it comes to what we do internally? Well, it turns out there are three tests we can use to differentiate value-adding activities from non-value-added activities or waste. And the three rules are presented here. The first one is about, well, the activity should be right first time. It should conform to customer requirements. It should be complete. It should be accurate. It should be on time. And therefore, any time something is not right first time, we're having to rework or replicate in some other way, that's waste. That can be avoided. So it needs to be done right first time. Secondly, the activity needs to enable a physical change to the material or information going through the process. Physically change in some way towards that which is something the customer's prepared to pay for. So machining some material to create the right shapes, assembling parts, or completing lines on an assessment if it's a service we're providing the customer, documenting the report to create value for the customer that way. Any activity that is adding value directly in that report is a value-added step. And thirdly, we need to be sure that this activity is something the customer's prepared to pay for. That if it was absent, they would know and they would not be satisfied. So for example, if we were to reduce the amount of transport required to deliver good quality product on time, the customer's going to be perfectly happy with that. They don't care about the transportation as long as they get the right product at the right time in the right quantity. So that's something we're free to reduce or even eliminate where possible. So those are the 3 rules for value-added activity. Therefore, everything else, whilst it may not be possible to eliminate, is something we can aim to do. The better we understand our customer and their definition of value, the more confident we can be about identifying and eliminating waste. Now, one of the tools that really helps us see the waste is when we map the flow of value, and we call it value stream mapping, and we understand the series of steps and processes and supporting processes that are required in order to handle both the information flow coming from our customer through sales, order processing, maybe planning and scheduling activities, the information flow, but then also the material flow as we manufacture, assemble, and distribute product to our customers. Visualizing those process steps, laying them out on a map, really understanding our current reality, the true, hidden factories, all the waste elements as well as the value-added steps on one single picture helps align everybody in terms of where are the major waste opportunities, where are the major improvement opportunities that we can together seek to address. So a typical value stream map will include the information flow described in usually the top half, interacting then with the material flow, usually flowing from left to right in the bottom half of the picture, and then the very bottom line really is a timeline where we can show what proportion of the overall elapsed time is value added compared with all the various delays, interrupts, waiting time, inventory stock holding points, which are consuming usually more than 90, 95, even more than 99% of the elapsed lead time from a customer's perspective. That's how big the opportunity for improvement often is. And so we can quantify, categorize, and prioritize the waste and make some choices based on facts, based on data, collectively make the right choices about where to focus next, how to build an improvement roadmap based on our collective view of the current state. So let's talk about waste a bit more specifically. And in the Japanese terminology, we can use the idea of 3 M's, referring to muda, mura, and muri, which have specific meaning. The first one being muda, and you're probably familiar with the acronym Tim Woods, which is referring to the different categories of wasteful activity that are defining non-value-added work, such as transport, inventory, motion, also waiting time, over-processing, overproduction, as well as the waste of not using the full potential of the skills of our people. So this comes in many different forms, but exists in almost every process that we can define or think of. So that's a classic kind of definition of the core aspect of waste, muda, as it's known in Japanese. But there are 2 other dimensions to this that are also very important. The next one is mura, which is any unevenness in the demand on any operation or any team. We can call it feast or famine. It's that big wavy or lumpy chunks of demand that come in an unpredictable or intermittent way I mean, sometimes we're waiting, we're really quiet, and then all of a sudden we've got a big rush and a huge bow wave of work to get through. So whenever a team or individual is encountering high levels of unevenness, it's unlikely that they'll be operating efficiently. It's unlikely that they're establishing some kind of rhythm and routine in the work, and therefore it's not going to be as productive as it should be. But also it's hard to sustain. It's hard to sustain those levels and be comfortable in that kind of working environment. Finally, we can look at Muri, which is whenever a person, a team, or a piece of equipment is simply overburdened. It's exceeding the comfortable capacity level, and so we're straining that resource. We're sweating that resource more than is reasonably achievable, maybe over an extended period of time. And what does that lead to? That leads to burnout of either the individual or the equipment. Something will break down, and we'll have a significant problem on our hands. So overburdening any resource, whether it's people or equipment, is something we need to avoid. And so the picture on the slide is just one way of visualizing how that looks. In this case, it's a transportation example, but these characteristics can apply to any process. And so it's up to us as leaders, as lean practitioners, to identify whether it's Muda, Muri, or Mura, and to develop strategies for smoothing it out or eliminating the sources of waste. So we've looked at the idea of customer value and the idea of the value stream and visualizing the way in which value is created in our organization. And we've also been looking at waste in its various forms. So now my colleague Vanessa Stanek is going to build on this by talking about the Gemba, what it means to go to the Gemba to identify waste, and then also the scientific method for improvement, for eliminating waste through Plan, Do, Check, Act or PDCA.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Stanek and I'm a practitioner with the Manufacturers Network. And I'm going to be talking about some of the key principles and topics that we'll be covering as part of this Lean Toolkit in a little bit more detail. But I'm just going to go through some of the basic principles with you on some of the things that are really important to master early on in your Lean journey. And you'll use these tools on and on as you go through all these tools that we're going to be sharing with you. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is Gemba. Now this is a really important principle taught to us by Taiichi Ohno back in the day. And it really is about understanding where the work actually happens, in the actual place, in the real place, with the real product that you're working with and looking at the real team that are actually doing that work. But it's a really important principle to understand that you're going to see where the actual work happens, that you're going to go there to understand the process in detail. So you're not going there to tell people what they should be doing or explaining, what an improvement might be. You're going there to understand, you're going there to learn. And a really important principle is number 3 on this slide, is that you're going there and you're showing respect. You're not going there to correct, you're not going there to catch people out, you're going there as an ally to understand the process in detail. The Gemba mindset really tells us that we're going to look at some immediate problems. Maybe we're going to see them when we're on the Gemba. We're going to spot waste, hopefully, that we talked about before. We're going to look at potential problems. We're going to maybe go there with a mindset looking at what could potentially happen in the future if volumes change or different things happen in our organisation. And we're certainly going to be looking at operational improvement activities, anything that we can see as an opportunity to improve slightly that process as we go forward. So when we're talking about Gemba, there's some real serious detail we can go into in terms of the components of the Gemba. So this slide is a handy little reference tool for you to look at as you go to that workplace, as you turn up with respect, listening and going there with an attitude to learn and understand. So on the first section here, it's the observation. So we want to understand what those current practices are. We want to learn about them. We want to understand what those standards are. What should be happening versus maybe what is happening. We're going to use a standard checklist potentially. We'll come on to that in a little minute to really capture those ideas, to understand where those bottlenecks or where those issues might be. And we're going to use active listening because we're going there not as the expert, we're going there to learn from the people who are doing the job. So we're going to listen to them and understand what their challenges and their issues are, and we're going to make sure they understood that they're being heard as we do that. We're going to go into coaching. We're going to encourage people to find their own solutions. We're not going to go to the Gemba with all the answers. We're not going to jump to solutions. We're going to try and encourage our teams and the people we work with to come up with their own ideas and their own thoughts, because it's very likely that they've already got an idea. It's just perhaps that somebody's not been listening to them to really capture what that idea or that opportunity might be. And then we're going to follow up. Once we've been to the Gemba and we've learned as much as we possibly can, we're going to go back to that team and we're going to follow up with them. If there is some actions that may have been taken, we're going to come back with an action plan and some accountability for who's going to take that action forward. So some really interesting little tools in there. The Gemba is very, very powerful. The Gemba walk is very, very powerful. And you'll use it throughout your lean journey. Anytime you're working on a process or working in improvement, you're going to be going to the Gemba at every opportunity that you can. So I've just included here a small check sheet as an example of what you might use to prepare in advance before you go to the Gemba. You don't always need it, but it's sometimes a helpful tool if you're going with a specific topic in mind. So here's an example, but you make it what you need for your operation, but it could include anything from the operators, the shifts, the processes that are happening. It could even be sketches and details and spaghetti diagrams maybe of what's going on in that operation. But you'll be capturing the wastes you've observed using Tim Woods or whatever tools you like. You'll be looking at the number of people that are doing that work, the number of shifts, any other support services, maybe teams that are coming in there if IT or engineering need to come in and support that process. Those are the things you're going to be looking out for. But I strongly advise you to put your own Gemba check sheet together and get into the habit of using it and following up then with the team afterwards once you've made those improvements. And once we've been to the Gemba and we've captured all that information and our understanding is a lot clearer about what's going on in that process and what those opportunities might be, the scientific approach is what we always apply in Lean when we're trying to implement an improvement or aiming to make a change to that operation in one way or another. And the scientific method is really important because it prevents us from jumping to the solution that we think it might be in our head. It forces us down a path of logical understanding to make sure that we're putting the right improvement in place. So first of all, we'll make sure we understand the problem. We've been to the Gemba, we've seen it, we've captured maybe information and data about what's happening. And then we'll go into the plan phase. So we'll develop our hypothesis perhaps about what may be going wrong or what may be happening. So we'll put a plan around how we're going to understand that in a bit more detail. We may then go into the do phase to put an experiment together. We might test our hypothesis on part of the process or a particular area and see if what our assumption was is correct, prove that the principle is sound. Then we'll check that information that comes out of that little test area, whatever that might be. We'll confirm that the results are as we expected or not, and then we'll put an action in place. We'll go into the act step, where we'll then decide, actually, yes, it's proved our hypothesis correct, we're going to do something different, or no, that didn't work as we anticipated, we're going to do something else. And we'll just keep going through that PDCA cycle over and over again to gradually and continually improve that process. And these are some of the fundamental core concepts of lean and tools that we use throughout our lean journey at whatever point in the improvement activity we might be. We understand value, we look at how we trace value through our organisation in the value stream. We learn to spot waste wherever it might be, in whatever form it might take, and learn that that's an opportunity for improvement the moment we spot it. We've understand more about the Gemba and the Gemba walk and how powerful that can be in terms of not just improvement, but also engaging with the teams that we're working with. And we've learned a little bit about the scientific method and PDCA. And we'll come on to all these topics in a bit more detail later on. So these fundamental tools and key themes that you're going to use throughout this toolkit are absolutely essential for you to understand and practice the second you can get out there to the Gemba. So the videos upcoming can be viewed in any order, depending on what subject you're most interested in and what's more relevant to you. I hope you enjoy them.